Hi, everyone. Well, it's a new year, new goals, new deadlines, and extraordinary times. The difference between 2020 and 2021 is, let's face it, we're smarter. We have experience navigating the pandemic a bit more, and we are still committed to the people we serve. And in this episode, we want to share with you a proven method for getting things done and how it benefits individuals and organizations alike. And what a better time to do it than the beginning of the year. I love conversations about productivity. And I think it has to do with the fact that I want to do it all. Always did, always will. And so I've spent many times in years, throughout the years, reading books and talking to people about how do they get things done. And about a year ago, I heard about this concept, the 12-week year. And I spoke to someone who told me it changed her life. And then I learned recently that our very own co-host, Peter Blakely, also uses the 12-week year for her individual purpose as well as for her business. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about this topic because let's face it, organizations are still implementing, they're still redesigning, we are still in this pandemic, and we're still moving forward. This information can help you to that end. And it's a new year, and we can't avoid setting goals, individual goals. So come on for the next half hour on Coffee Time with Masterminds, and let's hear about how we can move our goals forward this year and make 2021 your best year yet. Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds, a 30-minute conversation about leaders in mission-driven organizations. And if you are joining us for the first time or you just joined us, please tell us your name and where you're from. We always want to hear about where people are from. In this episode, we're going to look at the theory behind this 12-week year. How does it help you, and how can individuals and organizations implement this model? So let's start with, I am Cynthia Rojas, and I am the founder and principal of To Your Growth. And I am here to welcome Rebecca Tuttle. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you, Cynthia?
I'm good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Guess what I got for the new year?
Oh, that's so awesome. You are so awesome. I love it. I love it.
So I'm almost like through the first quarter of it. So I hope today's not a spoiler, but more excitement, and I'm sure it's going to be.
I don't think it might be a spoiler, but that's okay. It's not one of those things that would be terrible.
Well, I'm Rebecca Tuttle. I'm the founder and principal of Grant Right Now and Grant Writing for Good.
Wonderful. I want to bring our co-host on, and who's going to serve as our guest. He does the 12-week year, Peter Blakely. Hi, Peter. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I'm Peter Blakely, and I'm the founder and principal of Blakely Consulting.
Welcome, welcome. And then we have a special guest. Karen Hinds is our guest today. She uses the 12-week year with organizations as they're planning large organizational change initiatives or strategic plans. Karen Hinds is an international and national keynote speaker on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as leadership development. And she is the founder and principal of I was going to say To Your Growth, of Workplace Success Group. How are you, Karen?
I'm great. Great to be here. Hi, Peter. Hi, Rebecca. Good morning, Cynthia. And hello to your listening audience.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for being here.
Thanks.
I am excited, right? Because again, I love talking about productivity and getting stuff done, and I love checking things off the list. So my first question, Karen, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll move to Peter. Peter uses it also, but how did you hear about it, and why do you promote it to organizations?
I was listening to a motivational book one time, and I forgot which book it was, but they mentioned that the 12-week year is a great resource. So, like any other book junkie, you go from one book to the next book to the next book, and you keep learning. But when I got to this book, I really loved the way it was set up. I love to set goals, achieve goals, and move on. And sometimes a 12-week year, the 12-month year was just too long for me. So this is the perfect solution to my problem.
Cool, cool. Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit about the model? What is the 12-week year?
Sure. So the model essentially says every January we set goals for a 12-month year. And it's because it's a long period of time, we can set a whole lot of goals and we don't necessarily have a sense of urgency about starting to work on them. So by focusing in 12-week years, we narrow the number of things that we're focusing on, and we get a sense of small wins, right? We get to accomplish them quickly, and as Karen said, accomplish them and move on to the next goal. So you're working on things in series rather than a whole bunch of things in parallel. And it's also got the opportunity that in that 13th week, you stop and reset. So you're revisiting your goals constantly on both big and the small level.
Cool, cool. Well, that's cool. So 12 weeks, some of us look at that as quarters, right? So we could look at it as that. But you had mentioned once that you look at it as seasons, right? So the seasons.
I call them seasons.
Yeah. Feel like turnovers for you. What is it that got your attention?
And every season has a theme.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about that. But Peter, you are our productivity guru in this group. Like you're always giving Rebecca and me some tips. Why this model? Why this model?
That's right. Because it increases focus. I think everybody is pulled in a lot of directions and has a lot of things that they could be paying attention to. What I have learned is that more than two priorities is the same as no priorities. And everything is competing for attention, and I'm always coming up with new ideas and following new shiny objects. When I focus in a 12-week chunk, it narrows the number of things that I can focus on and makes me set much more realistic goals, and also creates a sense of urgency that I got to get going on them. You always speed up towards the finish line. And when you have a 12-week year, you get a finish line multiple times in a year, right? And so that productive boost that you might normally only get in December, you're getting it multiple times in a year and accomplishing a lot more because the goals are more realistic and I have to plan in a much more concrete way.
Yeah.
Amount of time.
Plus, it's easier to work more efficiently when you're underwhelmed rather than overwhelmed. And so when you put too much on your plate, that's overwhelming. You never get to the end result.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so how do you introduce this concept to organizations, Karen? Because I think on an individual level, it's easier. And there's a bit to the model, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Rebecca pulled up the book, and so we also want to acknowledge that this is a book written by Brian Moran and I think Michael Lennington. But Karen, how do you introduce this concept to organizations?
Sure. So when we work with organizations, we normally, their first thought is, well, let's do a 12-month year. And we want to talk about quick wins. So we emphasize the focus of quick wins. We emphasize the philosophy of getting results. And that's what organizations want. So imagine instead of waiting till December, you can actually get the results you want now. So we're looking at, let's say, March or 3 months after that. So that appeals to the companies that we work with because they want to see quick wins for the problems that they're facing.
Yeah, you brought something up. So in the book, the authors talk about how this was interesting. They coined the concept annualized thinking. And it's this idea, and I was struck by this. Organizations achieve 40% of their productivity 60 days of the year. And
Mm.
that's the 60 days before the end of the year. So
Mhm.
what Peter's talking about, this big push, psychologically, there really is something going on in your brain saying,
Mhm.
oh my God, I have to get it done. And it motivates you.
Mhm.
But if you only do it once a year, then you're going to be really busy around Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's not fun. And Hanukkah. And that's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
definitely
sometimes
is
then
not
it's just too
fun.
late.
Yeah.
You know, if you've set this sweeping goal, and not worked on it for 11 months, you're
Mm-hmm.
setting yourself up for failure if you suddenly focus on it in the 12th month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the good piece is when you have the frequency of this sense of accomplishment that you are winning every quarter,
Oh, I love
that
that.
produces a level of endorphins in your brain that fuels you to even do more. So I would say it rewires your brain, quite frankly, because now you've gotten into the habit of winning on a regular basis. You're able to recalibrate when you do miss the mark, and you will miss the mark on a number of them, but you're not stuck. So you get used to failing forward, if you want to call it that. You get used to
Oh, we
failing,
talk about that all
recalibrating,
the
and keep
time.
moving forward.
That's cool. Yeah, failing forward is a concept we use all the time,
Good,
and
good.
let's just do it. But Rebecca, you just got the book. Aside from the fact that we get every book that Peter recommends, tell us what inspired you to get the book, because you get a lot done, Rebecca. So if anything, you could write another book about productivity. So what inspired you to get it?
Well, I'm always looking for ways to be more efficient in my work. I think the way to a grant win is to maximize your efficiency and productivity. One of the things that I found most intriguing about this book is that it says that it's not a knowledge problem. I mean, I too am a book geek, right? I study everything, I read everything and suck up all this knowledge. But where the shift happens is in execution of that knowledge. So, Karen, I imagine, aside from just recommending the book and talking about all the benefits, how do you help organizations with the execution piece? Because I think that's the hardest part.
I believe that's where the accountability piece comes in. So just in like in my personal life, when I use this method, I have weekly accountability calls with accountability partners. So we encourage our organization to set up an accountability structure so they're able to meet on a regular basis, assess where they are, and then recalibrate quickly. I think a lot of people wait too long before they assess and reassess, and then they say, I'm stuck. Well, there's no need to be stuck. If you're constantly meeting, we recognize it's a process, the accountability is there, and you're able to shift really quickly. So that's what we're finding works well. And they have regular staff meetings anyway. So it's repurposing some of that time so it's being used more effectively for their staff.
I like that, because how many times have we said, oh, I sat in this meeting and it was such a waste of time. There was no focus. I didn't get anything out of it, and talk about being zoomed out. This is a great way to kind of zoom everyone back in. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is exactly how I talk to clients about using their program measures and performance measures. This is not a test at the end of the year that you pass or fail. This is something to be checking in with constantly while you can still make adjustments. So it's just bringing that same discipline to your own work.
I love this concept that Karen mentioned about winning more often, because there's nothing that motivates you more than winning, and so creating opportunities for those wins are really important. But I also want to go back to something that Rebecca said about, it's in the book, the authors talk about this is not a knowledge problem. It's an execution problem, right? Because, and they mentioned this, and I thought this was striking. Why do we need these kinds of models? Well, if you think about it, 65% of Americans are obese, despite the fact that we have a $60 billion fitness and wellness industry, and we have over 40 million books on diets. We still have an obesity problem. We know what we need to do. The problem we have is execution. And so this book is about executing and holding yourself accountable. So it's not just, and trust me, it's worth the buy. We're not making any money from it, but it's worth a purchase. Or looking at it because there are steps to the model
Yeah.
that actually help keep you accountable. Such like, and Peter and Karen, tell me if you guys do this, looking at your progress every week.
Yes, definitely. That's something I do with my accountability partner. So we meet every Sunday evening at 7 p.m.
Mm,
and we go through all the goals that we've had for the week, but we also send an email update midweek. So it is the constant, okay, what did you do? Did you get it done? How do you need to recalibrate? So the goals are never very far from our head, at least in our case. They're
right.
not very far. They're not something you write and put on the shelf somewhere. They're right in front of you, dead center, as a reminder to get it done. So the accountability piece every Sunday at 7 p.m. for an hour works well. And it's something I've been doing now for over a year and a half.
And these groups, what happens when you can't get something done? When life gets in the way or there's a crisis you had to deal with? Like, how do you not feel badly when you show up in these groups and say, I haven't gotten anything done? Like, how does accountability groups work?
Well, that happens quite often, to be frank. I mean, a couple of our members have small children. So then there's no shame, no blame. So it's not about shaming and blaming. Oh my goodness, it's life. The question we always ask, what do we need to do now to get back on track? And it's that simple. What do we need to do now to get back on track? We acknowledge that life happens, things get in the way, life doesn't go as planned. And sometimes there are wonderful surprises that take you off course, but in a much different and better way. So it's acknowledging the detours, recognizing how you need to recalibrate, and not sitting and wallowing. So we don't allow our members to wallow in, oh, I didn't get it done. It didn't happen the way it is. All right, what do we need to do to fix it? Keep it moving.
So you give each other advice.
We give each other grace. That's what I like to call it. We give each other grace. But we also hold our feet to the fire because we realize you're slacking off. It's like, okay, enough of this grace business. Get moving.
Well, it also helps people move beyond the excuse of, oh, I don't have time to do that, or I can't do that, or that's just too much, right? Stop making the excuses, start taking that and putting it into action. And I love your accountabilities, pulling people away from how easy it is to make excuses not to do what you need to get done. I have kids. That's why I schedule everything in my life around everything that I have to do. It doesn't always work out that way, but have you seen a change, Karen, in doing this exercise with your clients pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic?
I think I think during the pandemic, everything has been accelerated. So it's almost like a 12-week model on steroids.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I can't, I can't say we've used it as much because there's now a natural push to accelerate. So we don't have, it's not as hard to sell. We're finding that our clients, and then one example, for a client, we accomplish more in a 4-month period than we could have accomplished in about a year and a half. So it's a natural progression now, and it's not a big sell anymore because clients naturally want to move faster because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, with the protests, with the needs of their organization, and helping sure that they can show up for their employees. So we don't have to do, let's get this done quickly. They're bringing it naturally now. That's what we're finding in our practice.
Yeah, this is so Karen, you work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion arena, and there's been a lot of work in the nonprofit sector on that. And you're right, the motivation is already there and the urgency is already there.
Yeah.
But what may happen in 2021 is that we easily get diverted because there's so many things happening. I mean, we're expecting great changes in 2021, the vaccine being one of them. And so this may be something that ends up being helpful. But you're right about that urgency.
Yeah, it's a different urgency.
And also that flexibility. You know, one of the things that we've talked about in multiple settings was this was the year, the 12-month year, that we learned that maybe planning 12 months in advance is pointless. And we started talking about things like 12-week budgeting. And, you know, a lot of organizations changed their models and then had to quickly test and adjust a new model. So I think that thinking, like Karen said, is really being embedded in organizations. We need to be more nimble. We can't just set a course and then, we'll check in a year.
Yeah, different incentives, different motivations. Everybody wants it done yesterday now, so that
Right,
helps.
and it's not okay to come back in a year and say like, oh, that didn't work. Right, we need to be a little more aggressive about keeping ourselves.
More intentional.
Yeah. Well, I am this year, I am working, actually the three of us are working in a program about goal setting and power starting, and which uses a lot of these concepts. But one of the first exercises in that program was listing the things you did achieve in 2020, because we've gotten so used to blaming it as a bad year, right? And things were terrible. But the truth is, we went 365 days, right? We got things done, and recognizing that is also really empowering. Karen, you were going to say something to that end?
I think, so part of my 12-week process, you talk about people looking back at 2020. One of the things I did throughout 2020, I refused to allow myself to wallow. No, I had difficult days like everyone else. COVID hit, and I thought it was just the end of the world at one point. Like, I had no point of reference. But part of my 12-week process is to ensure that my mindset is also on the proper trajectory. So by the time I start listing my accomplishments of 2020, I was already in the mindset to say, this is a horrible year. These things are not going well the way I wanted to. However, what can I take advantage of? What are the gems within what seems to be absolute chaos? And there are quite a few I walked away with. So I think for 2021, for anyone who's going to be doing this process or any other process, to make sure that not only the accountability, but the mindset needs to go along with that as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was talking to you, by the way. Yeah.
We got lost for a second. It's cool.
I just forgot to flip the camera, and I'm having this whole conversation with Karen. How do you hold yourself accountable? Do you have a group?
Yes.
Aside from us?
Yeah.
Process.
My entire business, what I help organizations with is building these kinds of accountability structures, right? I help them measure their program's outcomes. We look at their leading indicators. We set up dashboards. And then I realized I was not making time to do that for myself, right? So yeah, I've had to build in my own structures. And for a while, I actually had a coach that I would meet with periodically, because needing to report on certain indicators made sure that they were happening, right?
Yeah.
And now I am in an accountability group where we're reporting every other week on the targets that we've set for the period, what we've done, obstacles that we've come across, and we help each other, with ideas and solutions.
This is great. Coffee time with masterminds, the three of us, this has become like an accountability group. I mean, we talk all the time about if it wasn't for having each other and understanding that we all depend on one another, we're not sure we would have gone 39 episodes, everybody.
We would never have accomplished all this.
This is number 39. And it's really because we hold ourselves accountable on behalf of our co-hosts. And so it does work. There's accountability group. I don't have one, so if anybody's looking for a new person I can join, I've not had one. I've not heard of that, actually. So it sounds like a good thing. The motto, I just want to go over briefly, and Rebecca, if you could show the book again, because this is based on the book, The 12-Week Year, written by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington. It's based on, they call 5 disciplines, and the first one is interesting. They talk about create a compelling vision, and we hear that a lot. I learned that if you can't see it, you really can't do it.
That's my whole visualization theory in grant writing. Oh, you just made me so excited. That's my whole framework.
I love that I invited you. So tell us about that, Rebecca. Tell us about this visioning and why you just like.
Oh, I just got so excited. I love grants. Can you tell?
Yeah.
You know, it's because it's one thing to talk about your program, your mission, recite your mission statement. It's a whole nother thing to say, this is the vision we have for our community, and you're a part of that. Or if you're not a part of it, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's exciting. Can you see it? Will you like to come along with us? And as soon as that person can visualize what you're talking about, they start asking you questions, and then they're just going along with you. It's a
I find that so powerful in developing programs when I start asking, like, well, what is it going to look like when this community is thriving, or whatever the target is that we're going for? What's it going to look like? And the very concrete details that people come up with are so compelling. I think people really get excited when they can see the change. And it's a great way to talk about how a bunch of organizations might be working in different ways, but towards that one vision.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I also want to recognize that Renee has joined us. Hi, Renee.
Renee.
Happy New Year.
The next discipline that it calls for is planning your execution. And one thing that was a good takeaway for me is that every day counts. When you only have 12 weeks, every day counts. And so making sure that you're moving it forward on a daily basis as well, right? Control your process. So weekly planning, peer group, accountability groups, and then measure. So you control your process, but you also measure your progress. And they talk about, being held accountable and things of that nature. And they give really great advice. Do you guys do this? The authors talked about doing 3-hour blocks every week to focus on what your goals are for the 12-week year. You guys do that?
I do that.
I don't quite do 3 hours yet. But I do have at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. I can't say it's all in one block, but it's at least I find concentrated shorter periods work for me. So I use the Pomodoro method along with the 12-week year, because 20 minutes is concentrated. I take a break, I come back at it again and work on it. So that's how I work. Because I can't imagine 3 hours straight. My brain would lose it. So the shortest period, getting a break in between, coming back fresh, that's what works for me.
Yeah, you taught me the Pomodoro method, and I use that as well. So that's working for 25 minutes and then taking a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
But so modifying this model is also okay. And I know Peter has a wonderful modification to her model. What do you do, Peter, to your model?
I take the 13th week off. That's vacation.
And she takes it off from us too.
It's in my calendar. Every 13th week, I'm gone.
I think I'm going to have to borrow that, Peter. Every 13th week, you're done. You just unhook and you unplug and you relax.
Yep.
I'm borrowing that one. So this is my So I'm going to schedule it when I'm done with this call. I'm done.
Look, when you're self-employed, nobody is going to tell you how much vacation to take, and nobody is going to send you on vacation. And you can easily just be working all the time every day. Yeah. And I don't think that that's healthy or productive. And
thanks for giving me permission to do that today.
Yeah. That's why. Go ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead.
No one wakes you up for work either. I just wanted to say,
that's true.
As self-employed. One thing that I really like about this book is the quotes that are intermingled within. And we're talking right now about the breakout blocks. And it says, if you're not in control of your time, then you're not in control of your results. I love that. If you don't block out and chunk the time to do it, then you can't get the results. Yeah. In my line, though, we're not really in control of the results, but we did invest.
I do have to admit that when Peter, I think last season, said she was going on vacation, as an entrepreneur, I thought, vacation? What do you mean? Like, we work all the time. And that's when she said, oh, no, it's my 13th week. And I was like, oh, tell me more. That's when I was like, I didn't know. Now I know the 12-week because I had met an organization that Karen Hinds had worked with, and she had introduced it, and they told me it changed their life. So I heard about the 12-week, but when I heard there's a vacation at the end of it, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta
Oh
hear.
man.
You know, the funny thing is, Peter, I've had on my board forever that I'm going to take 1 week off each quarter. And for the life of me, I would do a weekend, I'll do a couple of days. But I think this is the year when I could say, that's it. Peter gave me permission to take a whole week off.
That's the rule. That's the rule.
Yeah.
That's the 13th week, you're gone.
Yeah.
And you know, time block it now, Karen. Go in your calendar.
Oh, I'm doing it as soon as I get off this call.
Yeah, mark those weeks, vacation. That's it, they're gone.
I'm planning where I'm going too. Well, post-pandemic.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we have come to the end. But
Maybe a
let's
staycation, but
Yeah.
staycation. Yeah, we can do staycations. Let's just go around and see what are your takeaways from this conversation. Rebecca, what's your big takeaway?
My takeaway is just, accountability is really important if you want to get work done and then get to the end result you're trying to achieve. It's too easy to fall into, I'll just push it back, or I'll do it next time, or I don't have time. I think accountability is definitely a mindset, but it is also a motivating factor.
Nice. Peter, what's your takeaway?
you know, my takeaway is that you can't there's a tendency to set really, really big goals and then be scared of the results. Right? And what we're talking about here is setting more modest goals and then being real about the results. Right. So if you haven't accomplished your goal, it's not the end of the world. It's just an opportunity to plan better for next week.
Yeah.
And when you're working 1 week to the next instead of 1 year to the next, it's not a disaster, right?
Yeah.
You just sail forward, move on.
There's a lot of
So it's really a way for people to not, in my work, I experience a lot of resistance about evaluation because people do think it's just a test. But this is the way to look at all your results as it's just helping you. Like we're just gathering information.
Yeah. I love this idea that Rebecca just said. If you're not in control of your time, you're not in control of your results.
Exactly.
Karen, take it away. Tell us what organizations should do, or how can this help them coming into 2021?
I think for organizations coming into 2021 is to first pick their top priorities, setting that 3-month period, getting them set there, and then planning it out. Because you can pick the priority and pick the time frame and then do nothing else after that. So really beginning to map out who is accountable for what pieces, let's set deadline, and let's meet regularly. So I think for any organizations, regardless of what goal they have, whatever they're working on, is to really hone in and plan it out. So every week, you know where you're supposed to be in the process. So at no time should anyone be lost or not sure, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Yes, you do. The map is in front of you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers for joining us. And we'll see you next week, same place, same time, 10:30 a.m. on Facebook Live. Have an amazing and productive week.